So it's February, a month full of love and romance, especially with Valentine's right at the corner, and I have a few stories all centered around the idea of crushes, even with the lack of crushes I had growing up as a kid. But come with me as I recount these events as I draw one of my OCs of Felling on the screen. For our first story, I was around 6 years old when I had my first crush. Or at least that's what we're gonna call it for simplicity's sake. My dad introduced me and my sisters to some neighbors, including their son who was my age. Sounds all good and fun. Now, being the young child I was, I didn't understand how love worked and thought it was like a carefully crafted TV show or movie. That the universe would hand me the perfect love story, and all I had to do was sit back and watch as everything unfolded. So, when meeting this boy, I thought I was about to live out the life of the girl next door, childhood friends to lovers, that we'd scoff at the idea of falling in love but learn to do so as we got older, most likely during high school age. Even though when first meeting this boy, I was by no means attracted to this boy, no sparks flying. I didn't even think he was cute. But looks were not a priority for me as a kid whose favorite movie was Beauty and the Beast. At the end of the day, he was nice, and that was the important thing for younger me. So when our neighbors left, I told my dad that this boy was going to become my future boyfriend. He looked at me confused. And that's when he told me, Chara, that's your cousin. How was I supposed to know that this boy, that was my age, is my cousin? The only correlation I saw was that we were both Filipino. We didn't even have the same last names. And we lived in a neighborhood that was predominantly a Mexican community in the US. And this wasn't like an apartment situation. This was a proper house and neighborhood. What is the likely chance that my cousin was my neighbor? So much so that I could walk out to the kitchen balcony and hear the birds squawk as they are facing the direction of his own house. And because of this incident, I refuse to date any other Filipino. Just purely because I'm afraid to be with my partner and find out I have a long lost aunt and all of a sudden being told that we were cousins the whole time. At least I'm Filipino on both sides of my family. I only have to watch out for other Filipinos and Filipino Americans. And thank goodness nothing ever actually happened between me and my cousin. No one actually caught feelings, we didn't date at the end, especially when he didn't even realize we were cousins until we were 18. I had to just sit awkwardly with this fact growing up. Not even my own sister knows about this, just my dad. And now all of YouTube knows. And if my cousin is watching this right now, hi. I'm sorry for being the crazy one, but thank you for getting me into video games and into webkins as a kid. That's all we need to say. Now, for my second story, this was in middle school, and despite that one close call, I still didn't have any crushes, and I was content with that. I frankly thought I was too young to think about relationships, and didn't feel like those types of relationships were serious enough to put my heart out on the line. And that's fine. Except for the fact that it did annoy this one girl in particular. We'll call her Annie, and Annie at the time was my best friend. I say that with the biggest quotation marks, because she treated me badly about how I presented myself at school, both physically and mentally. I didn't wear makeup nor dress sexy enough for her standards. I want to hurl over the fact that a girl was upset that I didn't look sexy for a middle schooler. Ugh. But the thing that annoyed her the most was the fact that I had no crushes. That she'd ask me on a daily basis if I had a crush and I would answer no. That I didn't find any of the guys cute or hot, that they were all too annoying for my standards. And this would infuriate Annie, saying that I had to have a crush on someone, that there was no way I couldn't have a crush on anyone, that it wasn't physically possible. And as someone who's on the Arrow A spectrum, how funny is it that I didn't have a crush on anyone? That I wasn't catching strays left and right? Like, woe is me and my precious heart. I was going to be lonely forever because I loved no one in middle school. Honestly, I'm so proud of younger me for having standards. The only thing I was confident in. And although it annoyed Annie, I didn't care about her opinions on my love life. And that was the end of the story. Is what I would say if a guy didn't have a crush on me and getting Annie to ship us like crazy. He was a random guy I met during lunch. We never had any classes together prior to anything. I was introduced to him by Annie for him just being an annoying guy. So I did what I did best as a 12-year-old, threatening to punch him and beat him up purely because my friend found him annoying. Saying how I could get away with it because I looked all sweet and innocent. I was by all means not a good kid. I understood people's perception of me at such a young age. But somehow, with all my threats and demeanor, this kid ended up having a crush on me? Why? I couldn't fathom or understand it. This was before I got into shipping or anime. I didn't even know what a tsundere was or their appeal. I just knew that I didn't like him and had no reason to like him at all. And yet, Annie decided to start shipping us just purely for the fact that he had a crush on me. She would tell me about how he would ask about me, that he wants to get to know me, and all I could think about is how weird it all was. Okay, maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but sometimes you're just not interested and don't feel like taking the chance. And that is perfectly fine. And so at the end of the day, I never entertained the idea of dating him, disappointing Annie as I was not going to become her middle school soap opera. Until she started dating herself and I just gradually tried to not be around her. Middle school relationships, woo. And now we head into story number 3. And we're finally in high school. Woo. We actually are going to be dealing with the other half of my 2 crush fiasco. We already talked enough about Nicholas, and we're going to talk about a guy who we'll call Caliber. So Caliber and I met during freshman year in anime club. I looked pretty friendly and we shared a class together, so he decided to come up to me and show his froki to start a conversation. And it worked. After that, we became friends and hung out during anime club. But after a month of getting to know him, I started to have feelings for Caliber. And with my previous track record, you'd bet I was going to do nothing about it. Plus, I had to deal with the fact that I never had any crushes, to now juggling 2. Now, the class that Caliber and I shared was health class. And around the time that I realized I had a crush on him, we had entered the sex ed portion of the class. You know, the perfect thing to deal with while processing that you have a crush. Oh boy, my misery. But I remained calm as we went into our first activity. A simple game of agree or disagree. You'd stand on a certain side of the room if you agreed or disagreed to a statement, like saying pineapples belong on pizza, and deciding to stand on the left side of the classroom if you disagreed. And I guess during this exercise, I was checking out his answers for the statements a lot, because I might as well know and understand what his morals were. But this caught the attention of one of my friends. So, when Caliber and I ended up standing on opposite sides, my friend calls out, "Ooh, the couple's on opposite sides!" So this classroom was mainly filled with freshmen, And somehow in the roulette of classmates, no one in this class was dating one another. And my friend was staring right at me as he was saying this with the biggest shit-eating grin. I could have and should have ignored him, but I was fuming and everyone else's attention was on me. So all I could do was tell him to fucking shut up. And his anger did not quell so easily. I chased him down in the next class we had, which just happened to be PE, yelling meaningless threats because as much as I wished to deck him in the face, he was a track kid and I had little stamina. So I eventually tired myself out. But at the end of the day, nothing much happened with me and Caliber, which thank goodness. So I thought I was in the clear of that whole embarrassment as we continued on to our lessons. Or so I thought. When we were at the end of the subject, our teacher gave us time to study in class for the big sex ed test. So I was about to go to my usual study group when Caliber asked me to study with him. I honestly should have said no, because how in the world can one stand side by side with their crush as they study sex ed? It sounds like one of those weird cringy Wattpad fics waiting to happen. But he didn't have many friends and I was the only person he was comfortable with. So I thought maybe it was alright. That and I knew my study group would be fine without me. So I joined Caliber as we awkwardly started studying for the test. We honestly didn't say much because what can you say? I was more than thankful for the silence. And maybe I was overreacting and everything would just be chill. And all of a sudden, he reaches out and holds my hand as we're studying. Look, I know the joke of hand holding is, oh no, oh so scandalous, but it was for me. I'm someone who gets easily touch repulsed. I hate when someone's jacket grazes against my skin. And to make things worse, I was at the part of the studying where I had hit the baby making process in full. I cannot express how uncomfortable I was, but I didn't know how to react. I liked him, and couples tend to hold each other's hands. Maybe I should give him a chance. So I just kind of froze, unable to focus, just feeling his thumb rub the back of my hand. How the fuck was this my life? I couldn't function for the next few classes. I had to sit there wondering, how did this happen? And I still didn't know if he liked me or thought about me in a serious way. That was until about a week or two later when he asked me to be his girlfriend. And with everything that happened and transcended, I said yes. Now, do I regret and feel so much pain recounting some of these stories? Definitely. But because of these stories, I now know what I want from romance and love. Things were not perfect. Things could have been executed way better. But sometimes you gotta take the leap of faith and just take the chance when you have it. And so that's the end of my crush stories. First of all, happy Valentine's to everyone. Whether you have a partner or not, I hope you enjoyed my experiences with my crushes. Tell me any crush stories you've had or the experience you felt if you never had one. I try to make videos or song covers every other Tuesday, so be sure to watch out for the next one coming up soon. And I try to live stream on every Wednesday. I did have a set time, but I'm kind of experimenting with my times on Wednesdays for live streaming. I am currently playing a visual novel right now. It's called Blooming Panic, so watch as I get flustered by some boys. And I also have some commissions open if you want to get some art commissions, just email me at lostpurplesoul15 at gmail.com and we'll talk about it there. And until then, I will see you all next time. Bye bye.